I was really up there, you know. Because it takes so long to produce the vinyl, I had to sort of put it on the back burner after being extremely excited about it. Yes, and while I'm really looking forward to it, I'm listening to it again and other things now. And, well, imagine this. London, 1974. A dimly lit studio is filled with curling smoke. After midnight, the Stones are clogging, and Mick Jagger reclines in his chair, watching the mayhem around him with half-lit eyes. There was more to the 1970s than just rock and roll. They have to do with surviving. A lady with the ability to charm, ruin, or both was at the heart of every riff and scandal. Years later, Mick reflects on the perilous charms of 6 women who influenced both the decade and his life. Each one was a rival, a muse, a storm in silk, and occasionally a warning. Marianne Faithfull, the lady who understood the beauty and cruelty of celebrity, is where the story starts, as it should. Marianne Faithfull was both his undoing and his reflection. Living like fire and gasoline in the center of swinging London, they were young, wild, and inseparable. She transformed his mess into poetry, and his chaos into poetry. He was both attracted and frightened by the intensity of her soft-spoken voice. From hotel scandals to drug busts that almost ended their careers, they dominated the tabloids together. However, their romance was a battleground driven by addiction, envy, and the never-ending quest for artistic immortality. Not only did Mick lose his lover when their love ended, but he also lost his reflection. The lethal grace of Anita Pallenberg, a woman who could silence a room with a glance, sprang from Marianne's anguish. The muse who dissolved the boundaries between art and chaos, Anita Pallenberg, was the untamed spirit of the Stones' inner circle. Mick had witnessed her light up and blow up Keith Richards and Brian Jones. He was nevertheless susceptible to her attraction. Anita was a woman who glided through the world like smoke and sin. She was untamed and irresistible. She was the epitome of the 70s, gorgeous, intelligent, and careless. Knowing that she possessed power that most men couldn't comprehend, Mick frightened her as much as he admired her. Even for the largest rock star on the planet, control was a myth, and her presence plagued him. However, as the 1970s progressed, Bianca Jagger, another type of danger, arrived. She was sophisticated, enigmatic, and unquestionably American. It wasn't love at first sight when Mick and Bianca first met. It was recognition, like the last collision of 2 hurricanes. They were mirror images of one another. "Oh, I love and you put his own thing on it, you know, and it's pretty," he said after Keith and I ran through Jamaica with Steve and Matt. He is ambitious, charming, and uncontrollable. She possessed a confidence that could compete with any rock and roll man, a poise that could quiet rooms, and an elegance that was sharpened like a sword. Their 1971 wedding was a coronation rather than merely an occasion. The world watched as rock's most infamous vocalist wed a woman who appeared to be made of marble and fire, as flashbulbs exploded and champagne flowed. But a chilly conflict simmered underneath the glitz. Their passion was poisonous as well as enticing. Each takes advantage of the other's renown and rage. Bianca wasn't a jerk. She was intelligence concealed beneath silk and jewels, power clothed in couture. She had no interest in mixing pandemonium. She contested it. They didn't simply walk into a party when they entered Studio 54. It belonged to them, ruling the dance floor like a king or queen. However, anxiety persisted despite the music and lights. Pride and desire engaged in a duel in their relationship under the glistening chandeliers. 2 civilizations clashed. Every dispute was legendary, and every reconciliation was short and intense. Bianca was a new type of threat to Mick, one that conquers rather than seduces. She was dangerous because she didn't need him, not because she intended to ruin him. Betrayal was only one aspect of her independence. Her quiet was more loud than any argument. When she eventually left, it was with elegance rather than rage. A queen confident of her value abandoning her throne. Mick became aware of Bianca Jagger's true nature at that same time. She was the one lady who could simultaneously make him feel inconsequential and indestructible. Following Bianca, Mick found himself drawn to Carly Simon, a lady whose attractive exterior belied a darker side. Sharp-tongued, brave, and completely impervious to the typical charms that worked on everyone else, Carly Simon was the epitome of confidence. They met in the midst of the recording industry in New York, where ambition was more prevalent than smoke and egos clashed like cymbals. From the first exchange, Carly used intelligence rather than charm to disarm him. She had a sharp mind, was shrewd, and had no desire to be impressed. She was not fooled by his swagger or contradictory reports. Rather, she put him to the test, stroking his pride, analyzing his statements, and observing his wriggling with a wry smile. When they worked together on You're So Vain, their chemistry was explosive. Provocation and admiration go hand in hand. Every verse was a duel shrouded in song, and every lyric seemed like a secret. Even the engineers could sense the tension in the studio because it was so real. The song was an artistic statement for Carly. For Mick, it turned into a mirror that reflected all of his fears and loves. They had a captivating dynamic. Each side challenges the other to blink first in a fight of equals. Carly wasn't hazardous because she was seductive. Power was the issue. She was a woman who could outsmart and outsong any male in the room, and she didn't chase or beg. Mick was both excited and uneasy when he discovered that. They had a quick and intense connection that left no heartache behind, only respect and the lingering knowledge that, for once, he'd found a woman who could beat him at his own game and equal his rhythm. But danger's smile is usually gentler, and Baby Buell was the next thing that came for Mick. A model, singer, and storm in heels, Baby Buell was the wild muse of rock and roll, capable of making a calm night into a legend. She moved like she possessed the glitz and grit of the 1970s. The biggest celebs whispered her name in the same breath. Fame and danger blended like whiskey and fire in her world, which revolved around backstage doors with flashing lights and whispered secrets. At a celebration that faded into dawn, Mick and Baby's paths met. A night of laughter, music, and the kind of careless bond that only occurs when two people see themselves in each other. Their electric chemistry was irrefutable but short-lived. The kind of lady who could make a man feel immortal one moment and invisible the next. She was erratic and wild. She served as Mick's reminder of what it was like to lose control and enjoy life, a glimmer of youth in an already indulgent life. He wasn't pursued by Babby. With the assurance of someone who has danced with fame long enough to understand its beat, she matched him move for move. In the midst of commotion, they would spend evenings discussing everything from music to crazy, yet they seemed oddly content when they were together. But Baby was nobody's property. Freedom and being the center of her own storm were what she lived on. She didn't turn around when she left. She had places to go, stages to crash, and hearts to shake, not because she was nasty. And that's what made her really dangerous, Mick later acknowledged. The way she never had to, but not the way she loved. Someone very different. The untouchable superstar Tina Turner emerged from Baby's electric rebellion. Grace and fire joined together by sheer will. Tina Turner was the embodiment of power. She was emerging from the ashes of inner agony and transforming grief into performance with a strength that defied all expectations when Mick first met her during the Stones tours in the mid-1970s. She was raw, powerful, unstoppable, and thunder embodied on stage. The pain of every injury and the joy of every win were conveyed in her voice. The room shifted when she entered the spotlight, with all eyes riveted and hearts pounding. Her energy was transcendent, not merely electrifying, but off stage, she was a completely different person. Even the loudest men in rock were awed by the gentle elegance and serenity she exuded. Tina lived to persevere and to rise, whereas others lived to be noticed. She was not interested in conquest or turmoil. Survival and the discipline to get back up when life attempted to break her were the sources of her strength. She disarmed Mick, who was surrounded by excess and arrogance. He became aware that he wasn't merely standing next to another entertainer, he was standing next to a survivor whose suffering had been turned into art that had the power to move mountains. She taught him more than just rhythm throughout rehearsals. else. She instilled in him patience, self-control, and respect. Her motions were precise but untamed, and she had a commanding yet consoling presence. In her confidence, Mick, always the showman, had found his match. Tina's charisma didn't entice. She used truth to triumph. She carried her own light with her wherever she went, so she didn't need to shine brighter than everyone else. She was dangerous because of what she conquered, not because of what she did. She sang a statement of independence with each note. Each performance was a victory. And Mick realized something that very few men in his world ever did as he stood with her, watched her overcome her scars, and silenced every doubt. Chaos wasn't the real danger. It was fortitude, the unwavering determination of a lady who would not give up. MC Jagger reflected on the women who shaped the decade as it came to an end. Tina, Baby, Carly, Bianca, Anita, and Marianne, every one of them inscribed a narrative, a song, and a scar into his life. Instead of orbiting him, these wild, dazzling, and unforgettable forces of nature collided with him. While some altered the fundamental laws of fame, power, and desire, others crushed hearts. Together, however, they molded the man beneath the swagger, the artist who discovered that passion devoid of suffering is but a show. Mick still senses their presence in every chord, every sentence, and every breath when he takes the stage, and the lights burst like fireworks over a city that never sleeps. Their voices reverberate in the silence between lyrics, and their shadows linger in the beat. These perilous ladies of the 1970s were his enlightenment, not his demise. They showed him that risk does not always equate to devastation. Reinvention can occasionally be forced by the spark. His conceit was transformed into artistic expression by these muses. His songs were transformed into confessions by the heartbreakers. And Mick knows one thing for sure as the audience roars and he smiles, that classic smile. The guitar was never the instrument with the sharpest edge in rock and roll. The ladies who dared to oppose it honed the love.